Day 1 begins even before dawn. It is cold and damp in the basement. The air is heavy, saturated with old stone, mold, and that particular thick, oily scent that never truly clears out completely. The descent down the wooden stairs with peeling paint, every step creaks and bows under the foot. It is dark below, only the dim light from an old battery-powered lantern casts a yellow pull on the concrete deck and onto 2 large oil tanks against the far bulkhead. The tanks are rusted, the paint flaking off like scales. The welds were once neatly done, but now leaks are visible, both old and fresh. First, the inspection. My fingers slide over the cold metal, checking the welds, especially at the bottom. Right here, under the second valve, is a dark spot not dry. I crouch down, aiming the lantern. The drops are heavy, slowly crawling down the tank wall, leaving shiny trails. The smell intensifies immediately, thick, bittersweet, with the hint of certain metal. The valve is old, brass, with a ribbed handle. I turn it slowly until it stops listening. Silence. No hissing, no dripping. Airtight. Same with the second valve. Only then do I pull a rag from my pocket, already black, saturated, and stiff from old oil. I wipe the drops one by one, slowly, meticulously, as if it truly matters. The oil doesn't rub off completely, it just smears, leaving a greasy sheen on the cloth and my fingers. Now the canister. An iron jug of 4 gallons with a narrow neck and a heavy wing nut cap. I set it on the deck, a dull metallic thud. The cap unscrews with effort, the metal shrieks, the threads bind, and I have to put my whole body weight into it. Finally it gives. The smell becomes sharp, almost tactile. I open the valve on the tank slowly, a quarter turn. At first, nothing. Then a sound appears, a low, heavy glug, 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 as if the liquid is reluctantly leaving the warm darkness inside the tank. The stream comes out thick, dark brown, almost without splashes, but with a characteristic oily chomping sound as it hits the walls of the canister and rises in bubbles. The sound changes as it falls from a deep bass to a higher, hissing shhh as the level approaches the neck. I close the valve abruptly, the stream breaks with a wet thwack. The cap is screwed back on, my fingers slide over the threads, leaving black marks. The canister is heavy now, about 30 to 35 pounds. My arm immediately feels the tension in the shoulder. I grab it by the handle, the metal bale digs into my palm. I walk toward the spiral staircase. The deck is stone uneven, chipped in places. Every step echoes with a dull thud. Boot, boom, canister hits the thigh, tap, tap. The metal clinks quietly but distinctly, especially when I clip the corner of a step. The climb. The staircase is narrow and steep. The iron steps are cold and slippery with condensation. The canister bangs against every second step, a dull metallic bam-bam, rhythmic like a metronome. I have to pull it close to me so it doesn't swing, but then it presses against my ribs, catching my breath. Halfway up, I stop for a second. In the silence, I can hear only my own pulse in my ears and a very distant, barely perceptible dripping somewhere deep in the basement, as if the tank isn't quite airtight after all. Or maybe it's just my imagination. I carried the canister to the upper landing. I set it on the floor next to the workbench, a dull metallic thud, then a slight screech as the bottom shifted slightly on the floorboards. I approached the workbench. The wooden surface is old, darkened by oil and time, mottled with black stains. I began laying out the tools from left to right in order of use. First, the hammer. I placed it on the wood, a short, hard strike, torque. The metal head left a barely noticeable dent in the soft wood. The adjustable wrench. I placed it nearby, a duller sound, tuck-tuck. The metal hit the wood, and the handle wobbled slightly before going still. Wick shears, long with thin blades. I placed them down, a light metallic click, then the quiet tapping of the handles against the board, click-tock. A clean rag. I folded it into quarters and placed it last, a soft rustle of cloth on wood, almost silent. Now for the burner. It stands on a metal bracket bolted to the bulkhead. The protective chimney, thick glass in a steel frame, weighs about 9 pounds. I took the adjustable wrench. I approached the 4 locking screws at the corners of the frame. First screw, I fitted the wrench. Turned it counterclockwise, the metal creaked, the threads resisted. Then it moved easier, creak, 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 after 4 rotations. The screw was out. I placed it on the workbench, a small ringing strike. Second screw, same thing, creak, creak, creak a bit faster because the threads were already worked in. placed it next to the first tack. Third and fourth, likewise a screech of threads on metal, then the quiet thud of the screw on the wood. The chimney is now held only by the bottom rim. I took it with both hands by the steel frame cold metal, slightly rough from old paint. I lifted it slowly so as not to hit the burner inside. The weight was immediately felt in my shoulders. I turned toward the workbench. On the right edge an old flannel cloth lay ready, folded into several layers of soft pad. I lowered the chimney onto it very carefully. First the glass touched the cloth, then I lowered the whole frame. The glass settled without a sound, just a faint rustle of flannel under the edges. The metal frame creaked slightly against the wood as it settled completely. The chimney stands straight, the glass is intact, the edge is untouched. The burner is open. I proceed to the inspection of the wicks. Inside the housing, 4 flat cotton strips are visible, each 0.8 inches wide and 6 inches long, secured in metal holders. I begin the inspection. First, visually, I bring the lantern closer, the light falling at a 45-degree angle to highlight the texture. The fabric is coarse, the fibers uneven, woven into a dense mesh. The thread diameter is about 0.2 inches. The cloth is saturated through with oil, the surface glistens, feeling tacky to the touch. My fingers slide, leaving marks. I check each wick in order, from left to right. The first is saturated evenly, with no dry spots. The second has a small irregularity in the center, where the fabric has puffed up from excess oil. The third is fully saturated, but shows darkening at the base. The fourth is the same, with oil drops hanging on the lower edge. Conclusion: wicks are functional, no tears or fraying. Next, inspection of the carbon built up on the tips. The wick tips rise 0.4 inches above the holders, covered in a layer of black carbon about 1/8 inch thick. The build-up is brittle, like charcoal. The scales are fragile, crumbling easily under pressure. I press my finger to the tip of the first wick. The carbon sheds in tiny particles ranging from 0.4 to 0.2 inches, leaving black dust on the skin. The second tip has denser carbon but with cracks. A piece about 0.4 inches breaks off when touched. The third is a uniform layer, brittle across the whole surface. The fourth has the heaviest build-up, with scales hanging, ready to shed. Conclusion: carbon is present on all tips. Trimming is required for a steady flame. I move to the trimming. I take the shears from the workbench, steel blades 4 inches long, metal handles with plastic grips. I bring them to the first wick, positioning the blades horizontally, 0.8 inches below the carbon line. I squeeze the handles, the sound is sharp click. The blades pass through the fabric with resistance, as if through thick cardboard. The charred part is severed and falls into the burner tray. A quiet rustle as the carbon scales scatter over the metal, sounding like sand falling on a sheet of paper. I repeat for the second wick, closing the blades click, slightly louder due to the denser carbon. The clipping falls with a light thud and a subsequent rustle of scales. Third wick, shears in place, squeeze click. The fabric resists more, the blade sliding slightly on the oil, but they cut. The carbon scales shed immediately after the cut. The rustle lasts for 1 minute to 2 seconds until they settle on the tray. Fourth wick, click the loudest one. The carbon snaps with a crunch a fraction of a second before the cut. The clipping falls, and the rustle of scales mixes with the quiet tapping of large particles against the metal. I check the tray. About 0.2 ounces of black and grey flakes have accumulated, distributed unevenly. I wipe the shear blades with the rag. The cloth slides over the metal silently. Trimming complete, all tips are now even, 0.4 inches high, with no traces of carbon. I return the shears to the workbench, a quiet metallic thud against the wood. Adjustment. The control wheel is on the side of the burner, steel, 2 inches in diameter, with 20 teeth, connected to the wick lift mechanism. I grip the wheel with my fingers. The metal is cold and ripped. I turn it clockwise to raise the wicks. The first turn, a dry click, click. The teeth engage with the internal gear. The spring resistance is felt as a light pressure on the fingers. I continue, click, click, a series of 5 sounds. The mechanism raises the wicks by 0.8 inches. I check the height with the ruler. The first is 0.47 inches, the second is 0.43, the third is 0.47, and the fourth is 0.39. I correct a turn of the wheel counterclockwise for the second. A click down, less resistance. The wick drops 0.4 inches. Fourth wick turn clockwise, click, click. The spring tenses. The wick rises 0.8 inches. The sound inside the mechanism, dry metallic clicks, like clock gears, with a barely audible squeak from the friction. I check again. All wicks are at a height of 1/4 inch, perfectly in one plane. I release the wheel, the spring returns with a quiet tick, locking the position. The mechanism is lubricated, the resistance is uniform with no jamming. Refueling. I take the funnel from the workbench. Metal, 0.25 gallon volume with a 6-inch spout, 0.4 inches in diameter. I set the funnel into the refueling port of the burner reservoir. The spout enters 2 inches. The rim of the funnel hits the metal, a ringing clink, metal on metal. I lift the canister, the handle digs into my palm, weight about 30 pounds. I lift it to a height of 20 inches above the funnel. I tilt the canister slowly. The oil begins to flow. The sound of the stream is a low glug, glug, glug as the thick liquid hits the walls of the funnel, then the reservoir. The stream is steady, dark brown with no splashes. The oil in the reservoir bubbles. Tiny bubbles 0.8 to 0.2 inches in diameter rise to the surface, popping with a quiet pop-pa. I continue to pour. The sound of the stream changes to SHHH as it fills, the level rising to the 80% mark. I watch through the sight glass. I stop the flow at 2 ounces before the edge to avoid overfilling by even an ounce. I level the canister. The last drop hangs on the spout for 2 seconds, then falls plip into the reservoir. I wait another 5 seconds. A second drop forms and falls with the same sound plip. I remove the funnel. I pull the spout out slowly, silently, and place it on the workbench. A quiet thud. Refueling complete. The reservoir is full. No overflows. Level confirmed by the glass, exactly 80%. Cleaning the burner housing. I take a clean rag, cotton, size 12x 12 inches, folded in half. I inspect the housing. Oil streaks are visible on the side wall, 2 to 4 inches long, 0.4 inches wide. I press the rag to the first streak. The cloth slides over the cold metal. The sound of friction is quiet, SHHH, like the rustle of paper on steel. I wipe downward. The cloth absorbs the oil. The sound lasts for 3 seconds. The surface becomes matte. I move to the second streak. Press friction, SHHH. The cloth darkens. The metal is cleaned. Third and fourth streaks, same. The friction sound is stable. No squeaking. The cold of the metal is felt through the cloth. I check. All streaks are removed. The housing is dry. The rug is now covered with black stains. I lay back on the workbench, a soft rustle. Optical maintenance. The Fresnel lens is of the first order, consisting of hundreds of glass prisms mounted in a brass frame. The lens height is approximately 10 to 12 feet. Access is via the metal gallery surrounding the lens at the top of the tower. Preparation. I take a bucket with distilled water, 5 gallons volume, filled to the 4-gallon mark. The bucket is made of galvanized steel, the handle is on rivets. I carry it to the gallery. Every step on the iron grating echoes with a hollow metallic clank, the weight of my body slightly bowing the grating. I set the bucket on the gallery deck. The bottom hits the metal with a dull thud. The water inside splashes with a low gurgle, settling after 2 seconds. Next, I take a glass bottle with an alcohol solution, 16 ounces volume, cork in place. Height 8 inches. I set the bottle next to the bucket. The glass bottom hits the metal with a sharp ding, followed by a weak ring. Finally, a large piece of natural chamois, size 24 by 18 inches, folded in half. I place the chamois on the gallery. A soft flop sound as it lands flat. Cleaning starts with the upper tier of prisms. The tier begins at the height of 8 feet from the gallery deck, requiring me to reach up. I stand on my tiptoes. First, I uncork the bottle. The sound pop as the cork comes out. A sharp smell of alcohol rises. I pour the solution onto the chamois. 2 ounces are used. Sound. First a hiss as the liquid is absorbed into the dry leather, then a muffled gurgle. The chamois darkens. I squeeze it slightly. Drops fall onto the grating, plink, plink. I move to wiping the prisms. Each is 6 inches wide and 4 inches high. I press the damp chamois flat against the glass of the first prism. I move my hand in an arc, a 12-inch radius. Sound. An initial high-pitched squeak upon contact with the dry salt layer, lasting 1 second per stroke. The wiping removes a thin layer of salt and condensate 1/32 inch thick. I finish 1 prism, 3 strokes. I shift to the second prism, a step to the right of 6 inches, a climb on the grating. Repeat the arc squeak. The glass is now cleaner, the tone of the squeak rising slightly as the surface is polished. Third prism, Same movement, a squeak with a light echo from the tower walls. I continue sequentially, 4th stroke squeak, 5th reach higher, sharper squeak. Each prism takes 10 seconds. The scale is immense, about 300 prisms total. The process is monotonous. Finished one, moved to the next. Steps on the grating echo with a hollow going clamp. The metal vibrates and bows by 1/16 inch under my weight of 150 pounds. I switch to my left hand after 100 prisms to cope with fatigue. I go around the lens 3 full circles. The strikes on the grating add up to a steady rhythm. The glass is ready. I move to the brass frame bars 1/2 inch thick. I set aside the chamois soft thud and take a dry flannel rag 18 inches square. I begin polishing the upper bars with the pressure of 3 pounds. Sound, the friction of the cloth on the metal, a low hiss, 4 seconds per stroke. The patina goes away, the surface brightens to a shine after 5 strokes. I shift to the next segment, a step to the right, clang hiss. The total length of the frame is 100 feet. I polish it inch by inch. The funnel gathers yellow flakes of residue. In the end, the brass reflects the light with no dull spots. Inspection for streaks. I step back 3 feet in the gallery. I point the portable lamp at the lens. The bulb hums barely audibly. The light beam is refracted in the prisms. I observe. The clean glass gives hundreds of rainbow glints on the tower walls, red, green, blue spectra, each with a diameter of 1-2 inches, scattered over 5-10 feet. I turn my gaze 360 degrees. Everything is uniform. No streaks. The process is complete. The lens is clean, ready for operation. The lens is cleaned. I am moving on to servicing the rotation mechanism. The mechanism is located at the base of the lens, in a metal housing at the gallery level. Time, evening of day 1, lighting from a portable lamp shadows along against the tower walls. Access to the mechanism begins with opening the heavy protective panels. The panels are steel, 1/4 inch thick, each measuring 3 feet wide and 4 feet high, weighing about 25 pounds. I approach the first panel on the left. It is secured by 4 bolts, 1/2 inch in diameter, with square heads. I take the adjustable wrench from the workbench and set it on the first top bolt. The wrench grips the head with a click of metal on metal. I turn it counterclockwise. First turn, the grinding of threads as rust resists, a low grinding sound. Second turn, the grinding continues, the bolt loosens. Third and fourth turns, the grinding fades, the bolt comes out completely. I place it in the gallery, a quiet thud against the metal. I move to the second bolt, wrench in place, turn grinding, similar but shorter since the threads are already worked. The bolt comes out, a thud in the gallery. Third and fourth bolts, grinding on each, the overall sound of metal rubbing against metal with vibration. The panel is now free. I take the edges with both hands. The metal is cold and rough from the paint. I pull toward me. The panel shifts with a loud metallic scrape. The sound is a long grinding that lasts 5 seconds. I lift the panel. The 25-pound weight is felt in my shoulders. My arms tense. I carry it 2 feet to the side and set it vertically in the gallery. The bottom edge hits the metal with a dull thud. The panel wobbles for 1 second, then goes still. Second panel, I repeat the process. Bolts grinding on each turn. I remove 4 bolts sequentially. The panel pulls away with the same scrape, weight 25 pounds. I set it next to the first thud in the gallery. Third panel, bolts grind. The panel opens with the vibration of the frame. Fourth, a final scrape. All panels are open. The mechanism is accessible. Inside, gears, rollers, and the cable are visible. Dust and old grease coat the surfaces. I finished the access, panels moved, bolts gathered in a pile on the gallery, a quiet clink as they are collected. Greasing the gears. Massive steel gears are visible inside, each 4 feet in diameter. The teeth are 2 inches thick, with approximately 120 teeth per gear. 3 main gears in the chain. I take a tub of thick grease, dark green, paste-like consistency, 1 gallon volume, metal lid. I unscrew the lid, the threads squeak, the lid comes off with a pop. I take a wooden spatula 12 inches long, 3 inches wide, the wood is smooth. I scoop the grease, the spatula enters the tub with a squelching sound. Like thick mud, the grease is tacky, stretching in a 6-inch thread as it's pulled out. I bring it to the first gear, starting with the top tooth. I apply the grease to the tooth. The spatula presses down, the grease smears a squelching sound, a wet squelch, lasting 2 seconds per tooth. I move to the next tooth. The spatula scoops more application squelch. The grease covers it in a 1/4 inch layer. I go around the circumference tooth by tooth, each squelching upon application. My hand rotates the gear manually by 1/8 of a turn for access. Second gear, I scoop a fresh portion of grease squelch in the tub. I apply it to the first tooth squelch, then the next. The sound repeats rhythmically every 3 seconds. A 4-foot diameter circumference requires 120 applications. I go inch by inch, the grease accumulating in the grooves. Third gear, spatula enters the tub squelch. Application to the teeth, a series of squelching sounds. The grease darkens from the dust and the metal. I finish the greasing. All teeth are covered evenly, no gaps. The tub is closed with a squeak of the lid. The spatula is wiped with a regular rustle of cloth on wood. Checking the rollers. The lens rotates on steel rollers, each 3 inches in diameter and 4 inches wide, made of hardened steel, 12 rollers in total in the ring under the base. Inspection begins with the first roller on the left. I bring the lamp closer. The light hits at an angle, showing a layer of oiled grease and dust 1/16 inch thick. I take a rag of cotton 12x12 inches dry. I wipe the roller. I press the cloth to the surface, rotating the roller by hand with the sound of cloth rubbing against steel, a dry scrape, low and steady, lasting 5 seconds per revolution. The old grease is removed, the cloth darkens. Second roller, rag in place, friction scrape, the roller is cleaned in 2 revolutions. Third, the friction sound is louder due to a thicker layer of dust. The scrape continues. I continue around the circle. Fourth, roller scrape. Fifth, friction with vibration. Sixth, the scrape fades as it's cleaned. I check each roller for cracks, visually inch by inch. The surface is smooth. 7th, cloth rubbing against steel. 8th, scrape, nice steady sound. 10th, cleaning with a full revolution of the roller scrape. 11th and 12th, final scrapes. All rollers are clean. I finish the check. The rack is left with grease and dust residue. The rollers are ready, no defects. Wait drive. Checking the steel cable, 1/2 inch thick, 50 feet long, from which 500-pound weights hang. The cable hangs down into the tower shaft. The weights are at the bottom. I put on gloves leather thick. I approach the cable. I take it in my hand and slide my palm down from the top fastening. The rustle of metal against the glove, a low rustle. The cable is smooth, but with a slight roughness. I check it inch by inch. The first 12 inches strands are intact. The rustle is steady. The next 24 inches, my hand slides. The rustle continues. No broken strands. I go lower, 3 feet rustle, check for wear. The cable is fine. 4 feet, rustle with slight resistance from dust. 5 feet, my hand slows. I inspect visually. The rustle fades during pauses. I continue down 10 feet, the rustle of metal against the glove leather, the strands are tight. 15 feet, checking near the weights, the rustle is louder from vibration. The weights cast iron, 500 pounds, the surface is rusty. Ascending back, hand moving up, rustle in the opposite direction, I confirm no defects. I finish the check, the cable is in order, no broken strands, I remove the gloves. Winding the mechanism. I take the handle, steel 3 feet long, and insert it into the ratchet socket. The metal enters with a click. I begin to rotate clockwise. First turn, effort in the shoulders, 20 pounds of pressure, my back tenses. Second turn, effort grows, shoulders burn, track. The weight begins to rise in the shaft slowly, 1 inch per turn, the sound of the cable creaking in the blocks. Third turn, back is tensed, arms pushing, track. Fourth, rhythm accelerates, effort is stable, weight rises 4 inches. I continue. Fifth turn, track. Sixth, effort in the shoulders increases, weight is 6 inches higher. Seventh, back straighten, pressure 25 pounds, ratchet is louder. 8th, 9th, 10th, a series of track, weight rises evenly at 10 inches. I continue until fully wound, 50 turns, effort builds toward the end, weight is in the top position of the shaft. I finish the winding, I remove the handle with a click, the mechanism is locked, ready for operation. Day 2, morning. External inspection of the lantern room begins with going out onto the gallery at a height of 150 feet. I approach the heavy iron door, metal thickness 1/4 inch, size 3 feet wide and 6 feet high, weight about 80 pounds. The bolt is steel rod 1 inch in diameter, 18 inches long, fixed in the grooves. I remove the bulb, my hand pulls to the right, the metal slides through the grooves with a clang, the sound of metallic friction, grinding clang, lasts 3 seconds. The bolt comes out completely, I place it on the galley floor inside a quiet thud against the metal. Now the door, I push with my shoulder, the door resists from the wind outside, a pressure of 10 pounds of force, the wind pushes back. I apply 20 pounds of force, the door opens 45 degrees, the hinges creak, metal rubs against metal. The wind intensifies, the door tries to slam shut, I hold it with my hand, pressure on the palm is 15 pounds. I fix the door with a hook, the hook enters the hall with a click. Going outside, step onto the gallery, the wind blows over me, speed 15 mph. The door behind my back closes partially but is fixed. Inspection of the external railings begins. Railings consist of steel posts 3 feet high, 2 inches in diameter. The distance between posts is 6 inches. The total length of the gallery is 100 feet in a circle. I take a small hammer, steel head 1 inch in diameter, wooden handle 8 inches. I approach the first post, hammer in the right hand. I tap on the top part, ding ding, clean metal, vibration goes through the post. Middle part, ding ding, no corrosion. Bottom part, dull, salt layer 1/16 inch. Second post, top ding ding, middle thud, corrosion. Third, all parts ding ding. I continue in a circle, fourth post thud at the bottom, fifth ding ding, sixth thud from salt. Each post is checked with 3 strikes, the sound varies from a clear ring to a dull thud. Seventh post, ding ding on top, thud on bottom. Eighth full thud, corrosion. Ninth ding ding. 10th thud. I go around the gallery, the wind presses, steps on the metal grating clang every step. 11th post, ding ding, 12th thud. 13th ding ding. I finish the circle, 50 posts total, 20 with dull sounds from salt or corrosion. Cleaning one section of the railing from salt, I choose the bottom part of the first post with a dull sound. I take a scraper, steel blade 2 inches wide, wooden handle 6 inches. I press the blade against the metal at a 30-degree angle, pressure 5 pounds. Downward movement, a scrape of metal on metal, scrape, salt falls off in flakes 1/8 inch in size. First movement, scrape 2 seconds, covers 4 inches. Second scrape, another 4 inches. Third scrape, surface clean for 8 inches. I check, I tap with the hammer, now ding ding, clean. I wipe the remaining salt with a rag, cloth rubs against metal, a rustle. The section is ready, the metal shines, salt free. Descent to the storehouse, I return inside, close the door, the wind resists, pressure 10 pounds, hinges creak as it closes. I insert the bolt clang of metal in the grooves. Now descent down the spiral staircase, the steps are iron, with 2 feet, height of each 8 inches, total descent 150 feet, about 200 steps. I begin the descent, left foot on the first step climb of the metal under 150 pounds of weight. Right foot clang, rhythm every 0.5 seconds. Second step, clang clang, hand slides along the railing. Third rhythm is stable, clang clang. Descent along a turn, 10 steps, clang every half second, body tilted forward at 10 degrees. I continue, 20th step clang, 30th clang, the stairs vibrate slightly. 50th rhythm slows at a turn, clang clang. 100th clang, fatigue in the legs, pressure on the feet 75 pounds each. 150th clang approaching the bottom. 200th final climb, I reach the base. Storehouse, a cold room at the base of the tower, temperature 50 degrees Fahrenheit, stone walls 2 feet thick, concrete floor, room size 10 feet by 15 feet, the air is damp, lighting from a lamp. Coal inventory, coal is stored in bags of 50 pounds each, materials quartz burlap, bags size 2 feet high and 1 foot in diameter. Bags are stacked in piles of 5, 20 bags total. I begin the count, I approach the first pile, slap my palm against the first bag, a dull rustle of coal inside, like rolling stones, lasts 1 second. Second bag, slap rustle, third rustle, fourth rustle, fifth rustle. Second pile, first bag, slap, rustle, second rustle, third rustle, fourth rustle, fifth rustle. Third pile, similarly, each slap causes a rustle of coal, particles shift inside. Fourth pile, first rustle, second rustle, third rustle, fourth rustle. Fifth, I find a torn one, a hole 4 inches long, coal is spilling out. Torn bag, I set it on the floor, the coal inside pieces 2 minutes 4 inches in size. I take a thick needle, length 3 inches, thickness 1/16 inch, heavy twine cotton, diameter 1/32 inch, length 2 feet. I thread the twine through the eye of the needle. The twine enters with a rustle. I fold the edges of the hole. The burlap is coarse, 1/8 inch thick. First puncture, needle presses, goes through the fuff resistance of the fabric. Second puncture, fuff, twine pulls after the needle. Third fuff, needle comes out with an effort of 2 pounds. Fourth fuff at fifth fuff. A seam 4 inches long, 10 punctures, each with a fuff. I tie a knot, the twine tightens with a rustle. Leg is sewn shut, gold doesn't spill. I finish the inventory, all 20 bags accounted for, 1 repaired. Fresh water supply, inspection of a wooden barrel with a volume of 50 gallons. Height 3 feet, diameter 2 feet, oak wood, wall thickness 1 inch. I approach, knock with my fist on the upper part, the sound is ringing, empty ring, indicates emptiness. Middle part, knock dull muffled thud, water is at level. Bottom part, thud full. I determine the level. I knock from top to bottom inch by inch first 12 inches, ring, then thud at 24 inches, water at 2/3. I take a bucket, metal, volume 5 gallons, filled with water to 4 gallons, weight 35 pounds. I lift the bucket, the handle digs into the pump, shoulders tense. Topping up, I tilt the bucket over the barrel, water pours in a stream of splash into the barrel. Bubbles rise, diameter 1-2 inches, pop with a popper. Sound of the stream, SHHH, level rises by 6 inches. I stop the last droplet. I set the bucket down a thud on the floor. I finish, the barrel is full, the knock now is thud across the whole height. Workbench, return to the living room, ascent up the stairs, climb on every step. Room at the 20-foot level, wooden table, size 4 feet by 2 feet. Sharpening a pencil, I take a folding knife, steel blade 3 inches, I open it to a click. Wooden pencil, diameter 1/4 inch. I hold the pencil at a 45-degree angle, the knife cuts a shaving, VJ, a thin spiral of shaving 1/32 inch thick, length 2 inches. First cut of VJ, shaving comes off. Second VJ, graphite is exposed. Third VJ, a point is formed. Fourth VJ, I check the sharpness. A stack of journals on the table, 10 pieces, each size 8 inches by 10 inches, thickness 1 inch. Leather cover. Stacked evenly, edges aligned to 1/16 inch. The top journal is open for entries, pages are clean. I finish, pencil is sharpened, ready for entries. Day 2, twilight. The sun has gone below the horizon, the sky is grey, light falls fast. I ascend the spiral staircase to the top 150 feet, 200 steps. Every step echoes with a clang of metal under the boot. I reach the gallery, I open the door to the lantern room, a clang of the bolt, a creak of the hinges. I move to the main burner. The wicks are already serviced. Oil in the reservoir, level at 80%. I take a metal box of matches, steel forks, twigs 1 inches, hinge lid. I open the lid, a click of the spring. I take out a match, red-headed, diameter 1/8 inch. I hold the box in my left hand, strike the match against the side abrasive strip, a sharp SHHH, a flash, the smell of sulfur hits the nose immediately. The flame of the match is 1 inch high, yellow. I bring it to the first wick on the left, I bring it to 1/2 inch. Light it, the fabric hisses, the oil flares up with a quiet BFF, the fire runs up the cloth in 2 seconds, the flame stabilizes at a height of 1 inch. I move to the second wick, I bring the match, PFF, the fire transfers. Third PFF, a fourth PFF. All 4 wicks burn evenly. I take the toothed wheel for height adjustment, steel, diameter 2 inches. I turn it clockwise for 1/4, turn a click, the wicks rise 1/16 inch. The flame becomes high by 1/4 inch. Another 1/8, turn a click, flame height 1.5 inches, even, without black smoke. I check visually, the flame is white in the center, yellow at the edges, no soot on the glass. Now installation of the chimney. The chimney stands on a base, thick glass in a brass frame, weight 9 pounds. I take the frame with both hands, lift it, the metal is cold. I bring it to the burner, align it with the 4 brackets. I lower it slowly, the edges of the frame touch the brackets, a ring of glass against metal, ting ting. I press down a clang of the latches, 4 clips enter the slots with a metallic clack each. The chimney is fixed, the flame inside burns steadily, light is scattered through the prisms. I approach the rotation mechanism. The lens weighing 2,000 pounds stands on rollers, the stop lever steel 18 inches long, fixed in the gear wheel. I take the lever with my right hand, pull up a clang of metal on metal. The lever comes out of the slot with a grinding clang. The lens shuddered. A moment of silence. Then movement begins, a very quiet low rumble of the bearings, rumble, barely audible but felt by the soles. The lens turns at a speed of 1 revolution per 60 seconds. The first rays of light from the burner hit the prisms, refract. White streaks of light slowly crawl along the internal walls of the tower, first horizontally, then they go up and down. The streaks reach the windows, go outside, lie on the surface of the sea along white paths moving from left to right. I go out onto the gallery. I stand for 5 minutes motionless. The wind outside at 10-12 mph hums in the railings, a low howl penetrates through the cracks. Inside the tower, the ticking of the clockwork dry clicks every 0.8 seconds. Tick-tock, an even rhythm. The light rays complete a full circle every 60 seconds, repeating the movement. I observe a streak of light slides along the wall, disappears, a new one appears. Wind and ticking the only sounds. Deep night, about 2 o'clock. To keep from falling asleep, I am cleaning the brass instruments in the living room. I take a brass horn, height 12 inches, dull diameter 6 inches, surface is dull oxidized. I put it on the table. I take a jar of abrasive paste 4 ounces, smell is chemical, ammoniac with a metallic tint. I open the lid to click. I apply the paste to a piece of coarse cloth, size 8 inches, the cloth absorbs, the paste is green thick. I begin the polishing, I press the cloth to the horn, pressure 3-4 pounds, move in circular motions 2 inches in diameter. Sound, a creak of the metal under the cloth, VJ, rhythmic, every 1.5 seconds. The first section streaks 3 inches, the dull metal darkens from the paste, then begins to shine. I continue, VJ, the paste dries, the cloth turns black from the oxide. After 8 minutes the horn shines completely. The silence of the tower is interrupted only by the sound and the distant surf, a low rumble of waves coming from below through 150 feet of high, muffle, rhythmic, every 8-10 seconds. 4 o'clock in the morning. A thick fog has come, visibility 50 feet. Need to check the fog bell. Going out onto the gallery in complete darkness, I open the door, a climb of the bulb, the wind is cold. 8 mph, damp. Step onto the gallery, a climb of the grating. Fog settles on the face, on the railings, drops 1/16 inch. I approach the bell, bronze, diameter 24 inches, suspended on a beam. I take the hammer seal, weight 12 pounds, handle 18 inches. I lift the hammer with both hands above my head, effort in the shoulders 15 pounds. Strike, the hammer goes down, a strike on the edge of the bell, a deafening ring, gone, last 6 seconds. Vibration is transmitted through the floor, felt by the soles of the boots, a light tremor. Second strike, lifting the hammer, strike gong. The sound drowns in the fog after 2-3 seconds. Third strike, gong, vibration is stronger. Fourth gong. Interval between strikes is 12 seconds. I return to the lantern. Inside the glass condensation drops 1/8 inch. I take a rubber squeegee width 4 inches. I wipe from the inside, the squeegee moves up and down, the sound of rubber friction against glass, squeak, squeak, wet, each movement 2 seconds. The glass is cleared, visibility inside is restored. Done. The sun is rising, the sky is brightening. The extinguishing process. I approach the burner. I take the oil supply valve, brass handle, diameter 3 inches. I turn slowly counterclockwise, a creak of the thread, metal rubs against metal, 4 turns. The flame dims. First it becomes orange, the height falls from 1.5 inches to 0.5 inches, then it goes out with a light taste, SHHH, lasts 3 seconds. The smell of an extinguishing wick, bitter, oily, with a taste of soot, lasts 10-15 seconds. The wick smolder weakly, the smoke is thin, rising up. Shuttering the lens windows, heavy curtains, thick canvas, weight 15 pounds each, metal rings on a rod 1 inch in diameter. I pull the cord, the rings slide along the rod, the sound, SH, clack. 8 rings on the curtain, movement 10 feet. The first curtain is closed, the clack of the latch. The second, third, fourth, the same, SH, clack. All windows are closed. I sit at the table. I take a pen, dip it in ink. The last entry in the journal, the sound of the pen on the paper, quiet rustle, SHHH. letters are drawn slowly, 12 lines. Descent down, spiral staircase, 200 steps, lying on each. At the bottom I take off the heavy boots. I set each boot on the floor with a dull thud, weigh 4 pounds each. The boots stand by the wall. End of shift. End of recording. Day 3, morning. After the night shift, sleep is short for only 4 hours in the living quarters, 65 feet above the base. Light pierces through the narrow window, stinging my eyes. I sit up on the cot, the mattress creaks under my 176-pound frame. My feet touch the cold wooden floor, 59 degrees F. I stand, muscles stiff from exhaustion. I reach for my gear, the canvas work jacket, 4.5 pounds, sliding it over my head, the fabric rustling against my shirt. Then the heavy trousers with 2 pockets, 3.3 pounds. I button them, click click. The leather belt with its metal buckle clank. Now the boots, leather, 4.5 pounds each. I sit, lacing the left one in a crisscross pattern, SHHH, SHHH, the knot tightened. Then the right, SHHH, SHHH. I stand and stomp, thud on the floorboards. I grab the battery-powered lantern, 2.2 pounds. I switch it on, click. A yellow beam, 100 lumens. I begin the descent down the spiral stairs, 500 feet total height, 200 steps, each 8 inches high. Left foot on the first step, clang of metal under my sole. Right foot clang. A rhythm every half second. My hand slides along the cold metal railing. Second step, clang clang. Third, clang clang. I descend the spiral. 10 steps in, body tilted forward 10 degrees, 88 pounds of weight shifting to each leg. 20th step, climb. 30th climb. The staircase vibrates slightly. 50th climb, the smell of dampness grows. 100th climb, knees aching. 150th climb, nearing the base. 200th final climb. I reach the storage level. The steel door 2 inches thick opens with a creak. Inside it's 50 degrees F, the air heavy with the salt of the sea. Further down to the foundation, a narrow cellar ladder, 32 feet deep, 15 concrete steps. First step, thump. Second, thump thump. My hand touches the wall, the stone is cold, wet with condensation. Third thump. The lantern catches cobwebs on the ceiling. Fourth thump. Fifth thump, the smell of salt and mould. Sixth, seventh, a water leak in the corner, drip drop. I reach the bottom, a granite floor and even an icy underfoot. The inspection begins. The foundation is made of massive granite blocks, 6.5 feet long, 3 feet wide, 3 feet high, weighing about 4,400 pounds each. The walls are 10 feet thick. I take my steel mason's hammer, 1 pound head, 8-inch wooden handle. First joint, the cement is 0.4 inches thick, encrusted with salt. I strike the top, clink, a clear ring. The center, clink, solid. The bottom, thud, a hollow sound where the salt has eaten away 0.1 inches of mortar. The stone is 46 degrees F, the dampness seeps through my gloves, numbing my fingers. Second joint, clink, clink, thud. The storm vibration has loosened it. Third, clink, clink, thud. Fourth, clink, solid. Fifth thud in the center. I circle the 32-foot diameter foundation, checking 20 joints at high level. Each strike echoes in the cellar. 11, joint, clink, thud. 12th, thud. 13th, clink. The air is thick with the scent of brine, making me cough. I climb back up. 15 steps, thump. 200 steps, clang clang, my rhythm slowed by fatigue. I reach the living quarters and sit at the workbench. The air smells of thick lamp oil. The repairs are rinsing the spare fuel filter. A brass unit, 4 inches wide, 6 inches high, weighing 2.2 pounds. I set it down, clack of metal on wood. I take the steel adjustable wrench, 1.7 pounds. It grips the nut with a click. I turn counterclockwise, creak, the threads resisting. The oil smell intensifies. Second turn, creak. Third creak. The nut comes off, tink. I remove the 0.6 pound brass cap, clang. Inside is a copper mesh 3 inches wide with 0.4 inch openings clogged with a 0.1 inch layer of black, oily sludge. I pull it out, SHHH. The dry sediment crumbles onto the table. I take a metal basin with 1 pint of solvent. The smell is sharp, like gasoline. I drop the mesh in, splash. I take a stiff steel bristle brush. I begin to scrub, back and forth scrub. The sludge dissolves, bubbling. Second stroke scrub. Third scrub. The smell of solvent fills the room. Fourth, fifth, sixth scrub. The mesh is clean, the copper shines. I lift it out, drip. I wipe it with a rag, rustle. Reassembly. The mesh clicks into the groove, click. The cap goes on, climb. I tighten the nut, creak. The filter is ready. I set it on the shelf, clack. Day 3, noon. The filter is cleaned, sitting on the shelf next to other spare parts. The brush shines after the solvent bath. The chemical scent still lingers in the air, though fading. I move to filling the portable lamps. There are 5 lamps on the rack, each with a 1-gallon reservoir, iron-made, weighing 4 pounds empty, with brass wicks and glass globes. I line them up on the wooden workbench, 5 hollow thud. I approach the large oil drum, 50 gallons, oak wood with iron hoops. It stands 4 feet high and 2.5 feet wide. It's tucked in the corner of the storehouse. The brass bigot has a 3-inch handle. I take an empty 5-gallon bucket and place it under the tap thump of the button against the floor. I turn the valve slowly. First rotation GRR, metal grinding against metal, rust resisting. Second rotation GRR, easier now. Third of the stream appears thin, blackish brown, about 1/4 inch wide. The sound of the first bucket filling, glug. The oil hits the bottom, bubbles rising slowly and popping with a soft puck. The scent is thick, oily, bittersweet, filling my throat. As the level rises, the stream changes to a steady SHHH. When it's 1 inch from the brim, I snap the valve shut, CH bark. One last heavy drop hangs from the nozzle for 3 seconds, then falls drip onto the wooden floor, leaving a 1-inch black stain. I carry the bucket to the bench. It now weighs 35 pounds, the handle digging into my palm. I pour into the first lamp, tilting the bucket 30 degrees. The stream enters the neck, glug. I wait until the level hits the 3/4 gallon mark, then block the flow with my finger for a second. The last drop slides down the rim, drip. I set the lamp back down, thump. I repeat it with the second, glug. The third, the fourth, the fifth. Every lamp is filled precisely. The smell of oil is everywhere now, soaking into my clothes, hair, and hands. A final drop from the bucket hits the floor, drip, the stain spreading to 2 inches. Outside, I hear a rattling, metallic and intermittent, as if something has shaken loose in the wind. I head to the gallery at the 130-foot level. I reach the iron door, 80 pounds, 1/4 inch thick. I pull the handle, but the wind pushes back with 20 pounds of force. I throw my shoulder into it, 40 pounds of pressure, and the door swings open 2 feet with a loud, piercing scream of the hinges. The wind rushes in, and icy ocean spray hits my face, tiny salt droplets, 1/16 inch wide, stinging my cheeks and eyes. I step onto the gallery, clang of the grating under my boot. The wind is 25 mph, making the railings vibrate. The problem is the lightning rod bracket to the right of the door. It's loosened by half a turn. I take my 12-inch adjustable wrench, 1.5 pounds. I fit it onto the bolts, click of the jaws. I turn clockwise. First rotation, creak, the metal resists. Second to creak, clank, the threads are tight. Third, fourth, the bolt is secure. The bracket is motionless. I check the lightning cable, 1/2 inch diameter, tension is good. The wind whips my face, salt water stinging my eyes. I blink, the brine running down my cheeks. The rattling has stopped. I go back inside, shoving the door with my shoulder against the gale. It slams shut with a BAM. I slide the deadbolts, clank. The hinges give one last creak. Lunch in the living quarters. I sit at the table. I take a 15-ounce tin of beef stew. I open it with a folding knife, 3-inch blade. I punch it into the rim, scratch. The metal gives way with a crunch. I run the blade around the edge, crunch. The lid bends back. The smell of meat and spices is faint but familiar. I eat straight from the tin with a spoon, metal on metal, tink. The room is almost silent, save for the low howl of the wind through the cracks and the distant thud of waves 130 feet below. I chew slowly each bite 10 or 12 times. The spoon scrapes the bottom of the tin, scrub. The last bite. I swallow and set the tin down, thump. I wipe my mouth with my sleeve, the fabric rustling against my stubble. Lunch is over. I stand up, muscles aching from the morning's climb. Half a day of work still lies ahead. Day 3, afternoon. The empty tin sits on the table, a faint scent of beef stew lingering. I stand up, my leg muscles ache from the morning's endless climbing, but the day is far from over. The sky outside is losing its brilliance, the sun beginning its tilt toward the horizon, painting the gallery railings. The salt air is eating away at the cast iron railings. Orange rust spots, about 1/16 of an inch thick, have appeared on many of the posts. I grab a 1-gallon can of black oil paint metal weighing 10 pounds, the lid held tight by a rim. I set the can down on the gallery floor by the door thud of the metal bottom against the iron grating. I open the can, I wedge a flat pry bar under the lid, 5 pounds of pressure, and the lid gives way with a loud ch pop, followed by the creak of metal on metal as I work the bar around the rim. The lid comes off, releasing the scent of fresh oil paint thick chemical, with notes of bitumen and linseed oil hitting my nose instantly. I take a wooden stir stick 12 inches long, 1/2 inch wide, and dip it into the can. I stir, the stick enters the heavy mass plop, then slop 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 as the viscous paint rises and falls with a wet scorching sound. After 30 seconds the surface is smooth and jet black. I take a stiff, natural bristle brush 3 inches wide with a wooden handle. I dip it 2 inches into the can, the bristles soak up the paint, growing heavy. I approach the first railing post. The iron is cold, about 50 degrees air from the wind, the surface rough with salt. The first stroke left to right, 2 pounds of pressure, the brush slides over the iron, shore. The paint goes on in a smooth layer, 1/32 of an inch thick. Second stroke top to bottom, shore, covering the rust. Third shore, blending the edges. The scent of paint intensifies in the wind of the 15 mph gusts carry it away, but it clings to my face. I move to the next post. I dip the brush again, ch mock, the paint drips from the bristles, drip onto the gallery grating. Struck shore. The iron drinks the paint, turning matte black. I paint 12 posts in a row, each stroke lasting 4 to 5 seconds. My hands are spotted with black, the paint feels tacky on my fingers. Inventory check. I head back inside, closing the door, bam. I slide the deadbolt plank. Descend to the storeroom, spiral stairs, 150 feet down, 200 steps. My legs feel like lead. 50th step climb. 100th climb, my knees throbbing. 150th climb, reaching the storage level. It's cold inside, 48 degrees F, smelling of coal and dampness. The coal and firewood are kept in wooden crates, each box 3 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, weighing 60 pounds. I start the count. The first coal crate, I grab the handles and pull the wood, groans as the crate slides across the concrete, a 3-second scrape of wood on stone. I move it 2 feet, scrape as dust dances in the beam of my lantern. I breathe it in at you. This sharp sneeze echoing through the room. I pry open the lead creak of the hinges. The coal is in chunks 2 to 4 inches wide, black and shimmering with moisture. I slap my palm against the surface, SHH as the pieces shift. 120 large chunks, 80 medium. I shut the lid, bam. Second crate, pull scrape, dust rises at you. Fifth crate, filled with fire with logs 18 inches long, 4 to 6 inches thick. I move it, scrape the rough bark, crumbling in flakes. I tap the logs, thud a dry, hollow sound. Everything is accounted for. Evening prep. The sky is a dark grey, twilight is near. I climb back up to the mainland's 150 feet up, 200 steps. My legs are made of lead now. First step, clank, my knee trembling. 50th climb, sweat beading on my forehead. 100th climb, I stop for a second, wiping my face with my sleeve rustle. 200th climb, finally at the top. I open the lantern room door creak. I approach the burner and remove the hood 4 clacks of the fasteners. I lift the glass weighing 9 pounds and set it on the pad. The wicks are set at 1/4 inch, but I check the tips. The fourth one has a faint dark edge. I take my shears 4-inch blades and bring them to the wick, click, trimming off 1/16 of an inch. The clipping falls into the tray rustle. I check the height with a rule all hour, exactly 1/4 inch. The adjustment wheel, I turn it 1/8 of a rotation, click the wicks rise slightly. I replace the hooded ting of glass against the brackets, then clack 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 of the fasteners. Ready for the night. I sink into the chair, stretching my legs, my muscles twitch from the strain. The night watch is ahead. Day 3 turns to night. The sky is pitch black, starless low clouds have swallowed everything. The lantern room is in total darkness, save for the faint glow of the portable lamp on the desk. The watch has begun. Lighting the lantern, I approach the burner. The wicks are set level at 1/4 inch, the oil reservoir at 80%. I take the matchbox metal 4x2 inches. I slide the lid to click. I pull out a long match, 5 inches, with a thick red sulphur head. I strike it against the abrasive strip piece by SHHH, a bright flash. The scent of sulphur immediately fills my nose, sharp and acrid. The match flame, 1.5 inches high and yellow, smokes slightly. I bring it to the first wick on the left, holding it 1/2 inch from the tip. I light it, the fabric hisses, PFFF, the oil igniting slowly. The fire crawls up the soaked cotton strip for 3 seconds, stabilizing at a height of 1 inch, a steady white core at the center. I move to the second wick PFFF, the fire transfers the fabric, giving a microscopic crackle. Third, fourth, TFFF. All 4 burn evenly. I take the adjustment wheel, turn it 1/8 of a rotation click. The wicks rise, the flames stretching to 1.5 inches. Another 1/16 turn click, the flames grow brighter, clean and smokeless. Now the Fresnel lens. The light from the 4 flames passes through hundreds of prisms, starting as a soft yellow cone, then splintering into dozens of sharp rays. Each beam is white and crisp, 2 to 3 inches thick at the base, diverging at a 5-degree angle. The rays slice through the windows, laying long white ribbons across the fog. I start the rotation mechanism. I approach the base. The steel locking lever is 18 inches long. I take it in both hands and pull up with a clack. The metal leaves the notch with a sharp ring. The 2,000-pound lens shudders. I give the first push, pressing my palm against the rim, 15 pounds of force. It gives way, a very low, deep hum from the bearings, barely audible, but felt in the soles of my feet. The lens begins to rotate, 1 revolution every 60 seconds. The beams of light crawl slowly along the tower walls, then sweep into the night white tracks on the water, reaching out 1,000 feet. Midnight snack and tea. Descent to the living quarters, 150 feet down, 200 steps. My legs are heavy, each step a slow climb. It's cold in the room, 45 degrees F. I approach a small cast iron stove 2 feet high, weighing 80 pounds, with a grated iron door. I open the door creak. I take a look, 18 inches long and 5 inches wide. I place it inside blood. Hindling on top thin, dried 6 to 8 inches. I strike a match, feast by SHHH, and bring it to the wood crack. The fire catches the dry wood instantly. I shut the door, bam. Within a minute, the flames are roaring inside the low VUUU. Heat begins to radiate through the iron. The metal ticks as it expands, tick tick. I sit the copper kettle on top, 2 quarts, weighing 4 pounds empty. I pour water from the pitcher, 1.5 quarts, glug. I place it on the stove, thud. I wait. After 4 minutes, the water heats up, soft bubbling. Another minute, the whistle from the spout rises, starting thin and then growing loud, a swayish glug. I lift the kettle, the steam stings my fingers, and set it in the table bar. I pour the boiling water into a mug of tea, SHHH, the scent of black tea mixing with the wood smoke. I eat a hardtack biscuit, crunch crack, washing it down with hot tea. The warmth from the mug transfers to my palms, rising up my arms and spreading through my chest. The stove roars VUUU, the orange fire dancing through the grate. Observation. I step out onto the gallery. I push the door open with effort to 20 mph wind, 25 pounds of pressure on the frame. A step outside, the clang of the grating. The night is absolute, the fog thick, visibility down to 200 feet. The lighthouse beam cuts the mist, a wide cone 10 feet wide at the base, stretching 1,000 feet ahead before dissolving into the milk. The beam turns slowly every 60 seconds of full circle, lighting water, rocks, then vanishing into the fog again. The wind has grown colder, 35 degrees F, piercing under my jacket like icy needles. The railings are coated in a thin crust of salt, cold to the touch. I stand there, gripping the rail. The vibration of the tower transfers through the metal into my palms. Below, at the base, waves smash against the rocks, massive strikes every 8 to 10 seconds. Boom. A low rumble rises 130 feet up. The tower trembles slightly, like a living thing. I feel the vibration in my boots, and the bones of my legs rhythmic and deep. I stand for 10 minutes. The beam sweeps by again, light skims the fog, slicing it for a second, then drowning. The wind howls and the railings are low, you. The cold bites to the bone, but the heat from the tea and the stove still holds inside me. I head back in, door shut, bam, deadbolt clank. The watch continues. Night, the middle of the watch. The clock shows 3:30 a.m. The temperature has plummeted to 28 degrees F and the wind has surged to 22 mph. The tower shudders slightly with every wave that strikes below. The weight mechanism. Inside the rotation assembly, one of the steel cables holding the 500-pound weight has begun to make a strange sound, a high-pitched scream, repeating every 12 to 15 seconds as the pulley turns. The sound cuts through the silence like a knife on glass. I must lubricate the pulley immediately before the cable starts to fray. I climb to the very top, beneath the dome, another 25 feet up a narrow vertical ladder inside the lantern room. The ladder is iron, with rungs 10 inches wide and spaced 12 inches apart. Each step is a climb, but I move quietly to avoid the echo. My gloved hands grip the freezing rails, the metal is ice cold, around 25 degrees F. I climb slowly, first rung climb, second climb. My breathing quickens. 10th rung climb, shoulder muscles burning. 20th climb, I reach the platform under the dome. The pulley is 8 inches above my head, an 18-inch diameter wheel with a 1/2-inch thick cable running through it. I take my brass oiler 8-ounce capacity with a thin 6-inch nozzle. I unscrew the cap, creak inside this thick, dark brown machine oil. I tilt the oiler at a 45-degree angle, inserting the nozzle into the 1/8-inch gap between the cable and the wheel. I press the plunger of the first drip. Oil hits the metal. A second drip, then a third drip. The oil spreads along the groove, soaking into the cable. I turn the mechanism by hand, a quarter turn, the cable slides over the pulley, creak, the sound is still sharp. Another press, drip, more oil flows. Another turn, a creak, and the sound vanishes. One last turn of silence. The cable now slides smoothly with only a faint shh of friction. The lubrication holds, the mechanism runs true. I climb back down 20 rungs, climb, my legs trembling from the effort, fighting the ice. Leaving the lantern room, I notice it, salt spray whipped up by the wind, is freezing on the exterior glass of a Fresnel lens. Ice, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch thick, coats the lower prisms, distorting the beams. The light is scattering. Instead of crisp ribbons, there are blurry smudges. I have to clear it from the outside. I open the door to the exterior gallery. The wind hits my chest instantly, 25 mph with 30 pounds of pressure. I step outside the clang of the grating. Total darkness, save for the lighthouse beam cutting the fog every 60 seconds. I grab the scraper steel 4-inch blade, 10-inch handle, weighing 1.5 pounds. I pull on my thick leather gloves, but my fingers are already numbing. I approach the first section of glass. The ice glints in the beam's light. I press the scraper at a 30-degree angle, applying 8 pounds of pressure. First upward stroke, crunch, scrape, the ice breaks, flakes flying off 1/4 to 1/2 inch wide. Second stroke, crunch, scrape, the shards tumble down from 130 feet to faintest shh until they vanish into the dark. That fourth, crunch, scrape. The ice comes off in sheets, the glass clears, and the prisms shine again. The wind slants into my back, pushing me forward. I have to brace my feet against the grating. My fingers can barely feel the handle, only pressure and cold. I move to the next section, crunch, scrape, ice falling into the abyss. 5 more strokes, crunch, scrape, crunch, scrape. A 2-foot wide section is clear. I repeat this for all 12 sections of the lower tier. The ice is gone, the light is sharp once more. I head back inside, forcing the door shut, bam, deadbolt clank. My fingers burn from the cold, my face is wet with spray. The end of the watch. I return to the living quarters. The heat from the cast iron stove is still holding, the temperature has risen to 55 degrees F. I sit at the desk and open the logbook. The pages have yellowed slightly with time. I take the pen and dip it into the ink. One last check. I record the time, the state of the mechanism, the oil level, and the ice removal. The pen slides across the paper, shore, a quiet, steady sound. Each word is formed slowly, letters 1/4 inch high, the wetting shimmering. I write 8 lines, shore. I press the bottom shore. I close the log, bam. Outside, the sky is slowly turning grey, first a dark charcoal, then a faint violet hue in the east. Dawn is near. The watch is ending. I stand up, muscles aching, but the room's warmth envelops me. I pull off my jacket, rustle of the fabric. I lie down on the cot, the mattress creaks under my 180 pounds. My eyes close to the low howl of the wind outside. The end of the night watch. Day 3, late night. The clock shows 4:12 a.m. The temperature in the lantern room is 52 degrees F. The light from the main burner is steady and smokeless. Everything is silent. Wiping the lantern panes. Condensation has gathered on the inside of the glass, a thin film, less than 1/32 of an inch thick, matte, and barely visible in the firelight. It must be white so the beams remain clear. I take a dry flannel cloth from the shelf, 12 by 12 inches. The fabric is soft, slightly fuzzy, folded in half. It weighs almost nothing. I approach the first panel on the left, 6 feet high and 2 feet wide. I start at the top corner. I press the cloth with my palm-like pressure, about 1 pound. I make slow circular motions 4 inches in diameter. Sure, the sound is very quiet and steady, like the breath of fabric on glass. 1 circle takes 8 seconds. A second circle, the same, sure. The film of condensation gradually vanishes, and the glass becomes transparent, reflecting the flame more sharply. I move down 6 inches. The same motion, sure. The cloth warms slightly from the friction. Low still, sure. The panel ends at the base, 12 circles for 1 section. I move to the second panel. A step to the left, the soft rustle of my soles on the metal floor. I start again at the top, sure. The third circle, the fourth, the same rhythm. I slowly descend the panel. The condensation clears layer by layer. Third panel, sure. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th panel, sure. All panels are clean. The cloth is now slightly damp from the condensation, but free of grime. I place it back on the shelf, the soft rustle of fabric on wood. The glass inside is now perfectly clear. Sorting spare wicks. Descent to the living quarters, 150 feet down the spiral stairs. My steps are slow. Each step is a quiet climb. I place my feet carefully to avoid breaking the silence. My breathing is steady. I reach the table. On the shelf sits a cardboard box 18 by 12 by 8 inches filled with spare wicks. I open the lid, the soft rustle of cardboard. I pull out the first cotton strip, 10 inches long, 0.8 inches wide, and 1/16 of an inch thick. I lay it on the table, a light rustle of fabric on wood. With my gloved fingers, I smooth the strip, checking the texture. The fabric is dense, pre-soaked in oil, the surface slightly tacky but dry to the touch. I take the second strip, the third, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, I stack the first pile, 10 strips, one on top of the other, edges aligned within 1/16 of an inch. Of the fabric lays flat. A second stack, the same 10 strips, Third stack, 4th, 5th, All wicks are sorted. I close the box, the soft click of the lid. The stacks stand even, ready for use. Lubricating the burner door hinges. I climb back to the lantern room, 150 feet up. The stairs clang slowly, without haste. My legs are used to the rhythm now. The burner door opens a bit stiffly, about 2 pounds of resistance instead of the usual 0.5. I take a small brush, soft bristles, 1 inch long, with a wooden handle. I take my 4-ounce oiler filled with light, transparent oil. I open the door, creak, metal grinding on metal. I tilt the oiler over the top hinge, drip. 3 drops fall exactly into the gap. The same for the bottom hinge, drip. I close the door slowly, creak, the sound is louder than usual. I open it again, creak, quieter now. I close it, creak, quieter still. I open it, almost silent. I close it, silence. The oil has spread through the hinges. The door moves smoothly now. I set the oiler and brush on the shelf, a light thud. I sit in the chair. The flame burns steadily. Outside it is still dark, but far to the east. The sky is just a bit lighter. The night continues peacefully. Day 4, dawn. The clock shows 6:47 a.m. The sky above the horizon turns a pale grey, then pink. The sun just barely touches the edge of the water. It is silent in the lantern room. The flame has burned steadily all night. Extinguishing the lantern, I approach the burner. The 4 wicks stand at 1/4 inch, the flames 1.5 inches high, white and calm. I take the steel adjustment wheel 2 inches in diameter. I turn it counterclockwise very slowly. First notch click, the wicks lower by 1/16 of an inch. The flame drops to 1.25 inches. Second notch click, another 1/16 inch down. The flame is now 1 inch, its edges flickering slightly. Third notch click, the flame is 3/4 inch. Fourth click, the flame is 1/2 inch, orange at its core. Fifth click, the flame is 1/4 inch, thin and nearly transparent. Now the first wick on the left. I turn the wheel 1 more notch click. The flame goes out with a soft SHH lasting exactly 2 seconds. A thin wisp of smoke rises grey-blue, 1/8 inch thick, slowly spiraling toward the dome and dissipating after 8 to 10 seconds. Second wick. Wheel click. The flame shrinks. Another click. The flame is 1/8 inch. Last click, SHH. The smoke rises the same thin wisp following the first, dissolving into the air. Third wick. Click, click, click. The flame dies, SHH. The smoke reaches upward, nearly invisible in the morning light. Fourth wick. The slowest turn of all. Black. Click. Black. The flame vanishes, SHH. The final wisp of smoke rises to the dome and melts away. The room grows noticeably darker. Only the faint light of dawn pierces through the clean glass, stopping the mechanism. I approach the base of the lens. The steel locking lever 18 inches long. I take it in both hands. I press down slowly. The lever enters the notch crack. The metal fits snugly without a jar. The 2,000-pound lens continues to rotate by inertia. At first, the speed hardly changes. 10 seconds past, the hum of the bearings grows a bit lower. 20 seconds, the motion slows, the beams of light and the walls crawl more lazily. 30 seconds, the hum is quieter. 40 seconds, the speed drops noticeably. 50 seconds, the beams nearly stop. 60 seconds, total silence. The lens stands still. Not a sound. Morning rounds. I open the door to the gallery, a soft creak of the hinges. I step outside, a quiet clang of the grating. The morning air is cold, 40 degrees F. The wind is weak, 5 mph barely felt. The railings are coated in a thin film of salt, cold to the touch. I walk slowly around the gallery, a circle 20 feet in diameter. Each step, clang, pause, clang, pause. I stop at the eastern sector. I stand. I look at the ocean. The water is calm. Waves 1 to 2 feet high slowly roll against the rocks below. The horizon is pink. The sun has risen 1/4 inch above the water. The light is soft and diffused. Not a single thought. Just standing. Breathing. The air goes in cold, comes out warm. I stand for 8 minutes. No sound but the very distant splash of waves, muffled, rhythmic, every 10 seconds. The final act. I head back inside. I close the door, soft bam. I slide the deadbolt, a quiet clank. Descent 150 feet, 200 steps. Each step, clang, clang, very slow. I place my feet with care. My breathing is steady. In the living quarters, I take off my jacket, the rustle of fabric over my shoulders. I hang it and hook the light click of a button against metal. I sit on the cot. I take off my boots, the left thud on the floor, the right thud. I set them neatly by the wall. I lie down. The mattress gives under my 180 pounds, a soft creak of the springs. I pull the quilt to my chin, the rustle of wool. The silence is absolute. Only the ticking of a wall clock, tick-tack, tick-tack. Every 0.8 seconds. Steady. Calm. My eyes close. End of the watch. End of the story.